Today we're going to be looking at the pros and cons of the Leatherman Free P4 and how it stacks up against the all-time bestseller, Leatherman Wave Plus. What's the best multi-tool? Let's find out. Hey guys, welcome back to the GearsNTool channel where we do it-yourself projects and product reviews just like this one. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button below and don't forget to click the bell icon so you're the first to know when I release new videos. If you're a returning subscriber, hit that like button. It helps the channel out a ton. Today we are reviewing the Leatherman Free P4 and how it compares to Leatherman's best-selling multi-tool, the Leatherman Wave Plus. They have some pros and cons, and we're going to look at them in 5 different categories. We have the size and weight of each, the outside tools, the pliers that both these tools have, the inside tools, and finally the price point. Okay, without any further delay, let's take a look at the size and weight of these. So the length of the Wave is 4 inches, the thickness is 0.7 inches, and the width is 1.55 inches. That's very similar to what we see in the Leatherman Free P4, which is 4.25 inches long. The thickness is 0.68 inches, and the width is 1.3 inches. And really, I would say the bodies of these are basically, if we kind of compare by stacking, they're almost identical. What makes the difference in width is how far the blades kind of stick out from the main body of the knives. But yeah, the Free P4 is just slightly longer than the Wave, and the Wave is a little bit wider and just a touch thicker if we take the pocket clip off the Free P4. So as far as size goes, it's basically the same thing. The Wave weighs 8.5 ounces, where the P4 here weighs 8.6 ounces. So very comparable size and weight between these multi-tools. So let's take a look at the outside tools. So the Wave and the Free P4 have similar plain edge knives for their primary tool. Both are 420 HC steel. The tips are a little bit different. The Wave has a little bit more of a piercing tip versus the P4 has a little bit more dropped off tip. So I think this is better for kind of starting cuts on flat surfaces, where the Wave I think is better for piercing and stuff like that. But both very robust, strong knives, no concerns there. The Wave's knife is slightly longer at 2.9 inches, where the Leatherman Free P4's knife is 2.76 inches. So just a touch shorter. I would say these knives are very comparable for their intended functions. So moving on to the serrated edge knife, again 420 HC steel. The Leatherman Wave has a really nice serrated edge knife. I've been very happy with the serrated edge knife on this. Again, 2.9 inches, 420 HC steel, just like the straight edge knife. But the Free serrated edge knife is also very serviceable. You are going to notice it comes down to a chisel tip, or like a Tanto style blade, versus the Wave, which does not have a sharp tip on it. So I would say the Free serrated edge knife is going to be a little bit better for kind of piercing type task than the Wave's is, but the Wave's serrated edge knife is an excellent knife. I use it all the time for cardboard, packaging, rope, all that kind of stuff. And the Free does great on all those types of tasks as well. So just a little bit different style. Maybe you like the chisel tip style over the kind of blunted nose style of the Wave, but both are great serrated edge knives. So let's go ahead and take a look at the other side of the Wave here. This is where some of the differences start coming out. So we have a file, one's a cross cut and one's a diamond coated side, which I really do like the diamond file on the Wave. So the Free P4 does not have a file on the outside. However, it does have a pair of scissors, which I think for some people is going to be great. I'm not a huge fan of scissors on multi-tools. I typically find that they don't function nearly as well as just maybe using a knife. I know that there's certain applications where scissors are super helpful, but for me, not real sold on the scissors of the P4. Not that there's anything wrong with them. They're spring-loaded. They're a good size, kind of similar to the Leatherman Surges scissors. I just personally don't find myself using scissors much on the multi-tools. So Leatherman Free P4 has the scissors instead of the file. So the final tool on the outside of each of these is the outdoor saw. And they're very similar. The teeth pattern's identical. One criticism I do have about the Free P4 is the saw cutting length if you see as I matched them up, is quite a bit shorter than the Waves, which is a little bit of a disappointment considering the Wave is actually a 1/4 inch shorter of a tool overall. So as you can see, they kind of clipped the tip of the saw down a little bit on the Free P4, and it cuts down on the usable cutting length. And when you're using it, you do notice that it has a shorter stroke. So not really sure why Leatherman opted on a longer multi-tool to have a less effective saw. So just something to know. Both are very useful. Both work fine. It's just I do like the longer length of the saw on the Leatherman Wave Plus. For the outside tools, I'm going to give the win to Leatherman Wave Plus. You have a slightly shorter body, yet the knives on this particular multi-tool are a little bit longer than what the Free P4 offers. That being said, let's take a look at the pliers. The Leatherman Wave is just a little bit stiff to operate. However, the pliers are basically the same, or very similar at least, to the Leatherman Free P4. They both have removable wire cutters. They both have the normal pliers. They have the needle nose, which are both kind of rounded in this case, which if you compare to like the Surge, which has really squared off blocky pliers. So I personally like the rounded style, but if you like a more squared off pair of pliers, the Surge is going to have your name all over it. The biggest difference between these two pliers is the ease of repetitive use. So the Wave, it's just kind of stiff in general, and it doesn't like just fall open. It's kind of a stiff set of pliers. You're really going to have to work these in to get them buttery smooth. Where the P4, straight out of the box, super easy to manipulate with just one hand. It just basically wants to fall right open, which is exactly what I look for in a multi-tool. Also, the deployment is really easy. It just kind of flies right open. It just feels like a much more polished experience when you're using the Leatherman Free P4 versus the Leatherman Wave. Leatherman Wave pliers are super functional. Obviously, it's their best-selling multi-tool, so nothing really wrong with it. Just out of the box, it doesn't feel nearly as polished as the Free P4. And given that the Free P4 has all the same features on the pliers as the Leatherman Wave, I'm giving the win to the Free P4 in this category. For the inside tools on the Free P4, the left-hand handle has a 3D Phillips driver that's fixed to the tool so you won't lose it, a cap lifter, a medium screwdriver, and then kind of the wire stripper function is kind of built into the tip of the screwdriver here. On the right hand of the inside tools of the Free, we have the can opener, the small screwdriver / awl, the 1.5 inch ruler with a medium screwdriver, and finally the file, which is not diamond coated like the Leatherman file, but it has filing on both sides. Relatively short, and it has a small screwdriver on the end as well. So all in all, you have 4 tools on the right hand side, 2 on the left. And then that compares to the Wave, which has a can opener / bottle opener / wire stripper, and then the interchangeable bit driver, which a lot of people really like. Just one thing to think about with the bit drivers, guys, is unless you have a specific need, meaning like you actually want to replace this bit driver with something that's not included on something like the Free P4, you can lose these. And I have lost these out of some of my tools, and then you have no screwdriver. So something to think about. If you aren't going to be changing these out a lot, there might actually be a benefit to having something like this fixed Phillips head screwdriver. So just kind of food for thought. And then on the right hand handle, we have the medium flathead screwdriver, which also works as great as like a pry bar. The eyeglasses screwdriver, which has flat and Phillips. And then the little scissors, which are really small compared to the Free P4 scissors. If you need a pair of scissors in your multi-tool, something like the Surge or the Free P4 is probably gonna be the correct multi-tool for your use. So yeah, those are the inside tools for the Free P4 and the Wave Plus. Just a couple inside notes. Neither of these tools is really missing anything. They just have different ways of implementing the same tools that you would frequently need. So things like the screwdriver on the Free, you're not going to be able to lose like you can on the Wave. Where the Wave has really small scissors and the Free has larger scissors, which is why I do these comparison reviews, to try and help you guys decide what's going to fit your use case best. So this brings us to our final category, which is price. Currently, the Leatherman Wave Plus is $99.95, and the Free P4 is $139.95. So a full $40 more than the Leatherman Wave for something that's basically the same size and weight and has basically all the same tools. That being said, if you want a pocket clip with the Leatherman Wave, you're going to need to spend an extra $10 or $15, but still, it's $25 less expensive than the Leatherman Free P4. That being said, the Leatherman Free P4 definitely feels like a more premium product. It's just a lot slicker to use, and it looks really nice with kind of the scaled, textured scales on the outside. And it has the pocket clip included, which is a nice touch, but still $25 more expensive than the Wave. The one benefit I would give the Free P4 over the Wave is if you're using this tool in cold weather with like gloves, you can access the inside tools without opening the actual tool up and taking your gloves off to use the fingernails like you would with the Wave. It is truly one-handed, deployable, and I think for a gloved user, this is definitely going to have a benefit. And that's a wrap. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button down below. It really helps the channel out a lot. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button and the notification icon so you're the first to know when I release new videos. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about either the Leatherman Free P4 or the Leatherman Wave Plus, I've done a detailed unboxing review of each, so I'll put a link on the screen for you so you can check it out. Cheers!